careers and also fully funded business support. So it's with great pleasure that we've been working for this evening with Growth Lancashire to deliver this session called Startup Essentials. So I'll run you through what that means in a minute. On the call today, we do have Jill Millington from Growth Lancashire and several advisors, Hervis Ali, Sue Denver and Debbie Chin, who are also managing the chat box. What you can do is drop in any questions into the chat box that you might have, and then I'll periodically be asking what questions you guys have put forward, and I can hopefully answer those as well. Equally, the advisors from Growth Lancashire will be available, if not this evening, then you can book in one-to-one sessions with them to follow up in terms of any particular areas you want to discuss, or have meetings with them as well. The other thing you could do that would help everybody else is put your contact details, who you are, where you're up to in business, business name, for all the other people that are on the call tonight, as a way of increasing your network. If you're on LinkedIn, you can put those details down. Let us know how it's going in the chat box. If the information we're sharing with you is useful. The slides for this evening will be uploaded to the resource section of the Growth Lancashire website. There's the link there, so you will get a copy of this, but we'll upload it there as well. Further on in the session, Jill will be doing a poll in terms of what themes you would like to be covered in future sessions. And what we would really like as well, hoping that you all find this session useful, is for you to, give us some testimonials of how things have gone. Now, you've got the option to a written testimonial or a video testimonial, and there's a link there. I'm sure somebody can get in contact with you as well but the slides have got all the details on. I've been in the world of business support since sort of 2007. I worked at the University of Central Lancashire here in Preston, originally on a programme called Northern Lights, which is an award-winning business incubation programme. The name later changed to Propeller, and I've worked with lots and lots of what we call pre-start businesses. So these are businesses with just an idea. New start businesses within the first 12 months of going, and existing businesses anything up to 5, 7 or even 10 years. Throughout that time, I've also worked with our local Lancashire Growth Hub, Boost, as an associate. Previous to that, I was a client on the Boost programme when I started my own life coaching, confidence coaching business. And for the last 7 years, up to last February, I had my own small business coaching consultancy where I would work with business owners and their teams to get the most out of productivity, your bottom line, and also motivating staff within the workplace to ensure health and well-being is paramount, motivation is paramount, reducing the amount of sick days that are available, and helping the business grow and people grow. So that's a little bit about me. One of the things we're looking at on your business journey, whether you've started or you're thinking of starting, is help you transition from where you are now to where you want to be, in line with a clear business mission, the vision and values for that journey. And the more clear you are about that will help you understand the steps you need to take to be successful in your overall journey. Now, one of the things I would say to you, you've got the advisors that you can connect with. Obviously, you can connect with me, but you can make it a bit of a peer-to-peer learning as you go along from today's session. When you've got details of other people, you could connect with those either on an individual basis, or you could have a group session online and, learn from each other, because not everybody's going to be in the same stage of the journey. So you might be able to help me because I'm just getting going with the idea stage. Somebody may be able to help somebody else that's already been going for 12 months. So, there is, in my opinion, a lot of value with supporting each other. So use the chat and then make sure you get your contact details to help each other along going forward. And then it's also about ensuring you have a sustainable and practical plan, that making sure that your business and your business idea is still here, within the next 12 months, the next 2 years, next 3 years. So sessions like today are not just about giving you the basics in terms of business startup, keeping it going, but also the sustainability with all the challenges we face as small or small to medium sized businesses in this current climate. Don't be put off of that stat at the bottom, 1 in 2 businesses fail in the first year. It's really there for us to be reminded that we really need to have a strong foundation based on what we're trying to achieve and access all the relevant support that is available. Remember, you don't have to face this journey on your own. There is a lot of support through the likes of Growth Lancashire and people like us. The next 3 points is something that I feel, if I could leave you with one slide, it might be this one. Always understand what problem you're solving. So what is the outcome of what you're trying to do? How is it going to change my life? How is it going to improve my life? Or in particular, your client. So what problem you solve? It's the impact of what you do. So for Shout, what I could say is, rather than say we run networking events or whatever, I could say we help business owners like yourself connect with people, gain referrals, increase your connections, and make more money. That is a problem we're solving. In simple, people can resonate with that a lot quicker. I've already told you in that statement who for, businesses like yourself, but it could be businesses in Merseyside, businesses in East Lancashire. How we do that could be, we do that through 18 business-to-business networking groups that run across the Northwest that are fun, friendly, relaxed, where you leave with a smile on your face and a diary full of contacts, example. I'm exaggerating a little bit. That's the type of thing you need to create, even if it's on a piece of paper, you can do it electronically. If you've got a website at the moment, do you feel that your website sufficiently answers these 3 points? What problem do you solve, who for, and how? If I'm one of your prospective clients, do I know I'm in the right place for your product or service? Your social media, if you've got any accounts, is what you're posting and what you've put on your profile allowing me to feel that I'm aligned with, you know, what your business is about in order to help me? Have we got any Pervez, Jill, I've said that twice now, haven't it? Debbie and Sue. Are there any questions so far by anybody?
There's only one question, Latif, and Gabrielle wanted to know, basically she's looking to take on an apprentice and wanted to speak to somebody, but Purvis has indicated that her business is in Burnley, so I'm assuming we'll pick it up.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's brilliant, thank you. Does that answer, hopefully that answers your question, Gabby?
Hopefully.
Yeah, okay, thank you. If there are any other questions when I'm going through the slides, pop them in the chat, guys, if that's okay. We're going to cover several of these things. Key elements to planning and maintaining a business. Who is your target market? What that means is which people are most likely to benefit from what you're trying to sell, product or service. Equally, you can reverse engineer that and look to do research and think, right, there's a need for X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to fill that need. In the olden days, we used to have a phrase that used to be called, is there a gap in the market? Is there a gap in the market? And the flip side to that was, is there a market in the gap? A lot of these things will help you save a lot of money in investment. It might cost you a bit of time, but it's an investment. So which sorts of people are you looking at that will benefit from the products or service you're planning to do or you're already doing? How to undertake market research is another thing we'll be doing. Considering if your business is seasonal. That doesn't mean always seasonal as in like some of the shops in seaside towns. It might be where your peak months are going to be and where it might go a bit slow at different points of time, which may differ from other people. Is it going to be an online business? Is it going to be somewhere that's face-to-face? Do you have offices? Do you have a kiosk somewhere? Is it a retail unit? What do you need to get going to start up? And what skills and experience do you need to not only get going, but keep, consistent on the journey? And what are some of the biggest mistakes made by businesses? So if we take some of these, lack of market research. Now, you've got two types of people. You've got people that have a real strong entrepreneurial spirit and passion, or slightly might not do any or little market research. They might have done it in the head. I'm from the school of thought that I would recommend to people to do that market research. Yes, there'll be lots of entrepreneurs like maybe Richard Branson, James Carter. There'll be lots of people. They'll have done some level of market research to understand. Where can you do this research? Obviously, there's lots of stuff available on Google. The more clarified it is when you're doing the search, the better results you've got. If you've got access to your local library, or you've got access as an alumni to the university or college libraries, that's another place you could look at, mainly through business journals and business resources. And then you've got AI-related platforms. So if I wanted to open a physio clinic in Chorley, obviously I can use the Google to find out how many clinics there are, how they're going to differ from what I'm going to be doing, how many of those have got websites, is there a charge, what's the process, how many people, through some of the research it might say that in the UK so many people visit physios, but what is it for the Northwest, and is there any intelligence to suggest what it is for Lancashire, in particular Chorley, and at what type of physio I'm going to be? Is it people with sports injury? Is it movement or lack of movement? Am I focusing on people who are musicians or dancers for that matter? And I'm really getting laser focused, because then my whole brand, my marketing, the way I come across is very much niche for professional musicians that might be suffering certain injuries due to possibly repetitive strain injury. That's what we're looking to create with all this research. Now, if you do have existing connections, or you make connections on the call today, you speak to some of the advisors on the call today, you can use them as a sounding board based on what you've already collated or what you're about to collate. And you could possibly pitch it to them and say, this is the information I've gathered so far. What do you think? Do you think I've streamlined it enough? Because the more clear you are, the more easy it is for us to understand the potential target market, especially if you are going to do small budgets for any online paid advertising, where you would need to be very, very specific of who your target market is. That's where that's going. Poor business planning. So later on, we'll be talking about a couple of tools that you can use, but have you got anything, even if it's on a couple of sides of A4, that helps you understand where you are, where you're going to go, in the business journey, what strategy you're going to adopt, what kind of things you'll need, and some of the information regarding your finances. Have you got enough to be, to set the business up yourself? You might or may not want to dip into your private savings. How are you going to raise capital? How much capital? Have you taken into account the fluctuation of, interest rates and everything else? So these are the things I feel are some of the fundamental backbones and, foundations of understanding the business planning process. Insufficient financial management. How much is it going to cost you to get going? A lot of times we can get excited and go, yeah, that's only going to cost me 200 quid to do this. And when you actually break it down and you drill a bit deeper, it might be 2 times, 3 times the cost. Overestimating what you're going to make. If anything, you'd be better off rounding it down. So if you think you're going to get 50 clients in month 1, as long as you can prove how they're going to come about with marketing campaigns, referral campaigns, and all the rest of it, fine. But I would always round it down and think, right, month 1, if realistically, my aim is to hit 10 clients that are going to pay me X amount for the next 6 months. And these are what we call projections. So it used to be what's the word now? Turnover. It used to be an old phrase. Turnover is vanity and profit is sanity. So try and be as realistic as possible. If there is somebody that you know, again, there's the advisors, you can say, here's what I'm predicting for month 1 or quarter 1 in terms of what I'm going to be doing activities wise, who I've spoken to already, the launch of the business, and all my online presence. You know, is this something that you feel reflects a, you know, a realistic plan? And take the advice from the advisors as well, because they've worked with hundreds of businesses of different sizes, different scales, and also different parts of the Northwest, particularly Lancashire. Premature scaling would be, I get excited with my business. Yes, we've had a good run in the first of 3 to 6 months, and I might start looking at a new venue. I might start recruiting more staff than I might need. So all of this is additional costs, and how can I have a plan where, I know it sounds weird, but I'm outgrowing myself too quickly. I've heard lots of stories, and you probably hear it through the business news, where people that scale too quickly are not ready for all the parameters that exist. They come unstuck mainly through not enough cash flow. That's one of the things, as well as everything, organizational performance, organizational planning and strategy. But one of the things is, what's the word you could say, running before you've learned to walk. So that's another thing. Ineffective marketing branding. If my target market, the people I want to sell to, are encouraged to buy from me, are aged between 40 and 60, I need to find out where they all live online. How do I connect with those people? Because every single pound I spent with a marketing agency, marketing company, branding, it could go to waste if I fundamentally not highlighted that, whether I do my own marketing and branding or go to somebody else. Because if the brand colours and the brand palette and the logo and everything else doesn't resonate with somebody between those ages, they're not going to buy into my brand journey. It could be other age groups. So spend a bit of time with things like that, and do ask for second opinions from the age group you're trying to attract. So if I'm trying to set up a fashion brand, like a casual fashion brand, a bit of an urban brand for young men and women, I don't know, say 14 to 19, there's no point me asking my wife or, you know, my brother, or because they're not in that age group. They might say it's okay, they might say it's not. I need some way of doing either a focus group or getting in front or having an online survey for the people that are most likely to identify with the products I'm selling, engage, feel part of the journey, but also have that disposable income, whether they're paying for it or somebody else is paying for it. They're the people who I'm after. So how do I find those? If you think about how you're marketed to, from emails to your own social media, based on your own individual age group, that might tell you a little bit about what the algorithms have put in front of you for a particular reason. Okay? And a lack of adaptability would be, you've started, things are going fine. How do you then adjust things to meet the ever-growing demand of your customers? So whether you've got a clothing brand that needs to have a couple of iterations throughout the year, some spring, summer collection, autumn, winter, whatever, there's things like that. What is the competitors bringing out? So if we take my brand that is based in, I don't know, based in Preston, that covers the Northwest, it covers Lancashire, and I'm selling a tracksuit top, male, female, for £15.99, £14.99. And then next thing you know, everybody's going on Shein. And maybe they get it for a fraction of the price. Can I rely on my brand to say it's made in Lancashire? So there's a little bit about that. My story can override things. Maybe I don't want to compete on price. I might lose a percentage of my clients, but I can retain all the loyal customers that want that extra thing I give them from my brand, as in quality, status, customer service, and all the rest of it. So the ones that are only looking at price, they only want to pay £5 for it, they may not be my ideal customers. They may have bought from me, and that's why I'm collecting information from different people in different ways as they purchase from me, of things they like, things they like at the moment, things they might want to purchase in the future, things that they don't like, things they're not happy with. So I can always stay relevant with these sorts of things, you know, industry trends. I can always be innovating. You know, for example, I mean, I think we would do this if I did have this imaginary business, but we're sourcing things from local suppliers, materials, threads. There may be elements to recycling in there, ethically sourced, and that might be part of my business branding. Poor team building and management. For those that have already got staff, it's about looking how you can motivate people, but not just that. How can you take your employees part-time, full-time on a journey with you? How can they be your ambassadors that lead from the front? And if you're working with a group of freelancers, or you're going to be taking freelancers on, how can they feel part of the journey, even though they might be doing freelances on their own accord, but as and when you need them, they're doing stuff with you as well. So the lack of adaptability came about, in particular during COVID, lockdown. Sometimes some people physically couldn't do anything. It wasn't the case that they weren't flexible and they weren't adaptable. They were, but there's only so much they could have done. But I've had stories of people running digital marketing agencies with a section on branding, where they pivoted a little bit. They carried that on, but a new line for the business was producing a lot of the signage for different businesses, where, you know, signage to say one way in, one way out, you're distancing yourself, all the health and safety stuff, opened up a brand new thing. So very quickly they were able to turn that round, get the clients, and most of the time they had it shipped over directly to the customer. Other ones were people were doing business in a completely different sector, but realised they could get the dividers that separate people, especially in an open plan office, and reach out to people and say, right, for those staff that do need to come in, we can provide you either, you know, what do they call them, like Perspex or plastic screening that does this and that. Same with the PPE equipment. Now, not all of them were doing this before lockdown. So in order to make sure that their business may have gone a bit slower, they decided to think outside the box. So again, do you have a contingency plan of different ways your business could be perched up with other new opportunities? So before I move on to the next slide, do we have any questions based on what I've just covered there?
Latif, Ben wanted to know, would you recommend a paid market research company based on your experience?
Yeah. It depends. Me personally, I've always tried to go down the route of bootstrapping, and even when I had my own business, I tried to do everything either for free or very low cost approaches. It all depends. My personal preference would be to research it yourself, because you're getting the knowledge firsthand. You know exactly what exists out there. The information you're collating can be stored into different folders. So whether that's on the geographic market, if anybody's heard of something called PEST, or it's pronounced PEST or PESTEL, stands for, you can Google that, P-E-S-T or P-E-S-T-L-E. So what you're doing is you're looking around the political, economical, technical and legal aspects of your sector. So when President Trump announced all the tariffs, how did that affect different businesses in the UK and people in the supply chains? If you went to your local shops, you would have noticed the cost of living crisis, but the tariffs as well. Everything was going up. So, you know, everybody feels it. But going back to the question, me personally, I would still look at it myself. If you do need any extra help. If you've got the funds to recruit a company that can do that for you, then I would look at how much they're going to charge you, what's the length of the research, and what is it you're going to get in return. So there needs to be some sort of conversation to say, what is it you're looking for as a result of the market research? And there'll be several companies out there that will carry that out. I'm always the one to think, that's just my personal opinion, I'm always the one to think that I wonder if I could do just as well. Now, what I could do, if it's very, very detailed, that I want to source certain, I'll give you an example. I want to manufacture in Thailand or India or Sri Lanka or somewhere, and I need certain research that's going to tell me how much it's going to cost me for all the setup, the wages, the insurances, all the policies and procedures and the compliance, and how much it's going to cost me for, what do they call them now? The shipping, but what containers, where they're going to get, and my customers. So maybe there's somebody I can give that to and say, can you help with the research for all of this lot? And in what format do you get it? That might be something that if I feel my time's more valuable spent doing other things, then I could outsource it to a company that specializes in that. So have clarity. If you've got some paperwork and an agreement of what you want the end result to look like based on the payment and what the payment is going to be, whether it's staggered, whether it's all one-off payment, whether it's a bit at the beginning, whether it's a bit at the end. That's the way I would do it. Some of the things I've just mentioned, that if you're doing international trade, then again, speak to one of the advisors at Growth Lancashire, but you have got some of the government departments that link in. There's a lot of information online. I think it used to be called Department of Trade and Industry, but I think it's Department of Business and Trade now. So there's stuff online. Some of the chambers of commerce, the only thing is you need to be a paid member of the Chamber of Commerce, but there is quite a lot of things you can source for free if you feel you've got the time and maybe there's nobody else to delegate it to. We're going to come on to something called Business Model Canvas, which is a shortened version of producing a business plan. Nothing wrong with a business plan. This is a shortened version, which you can start completing yourself. You can then have a discussion with one of the advisors for them to look at or talk through with you. Now, there's several places you can have a look at this or download. One is going to be the Growth Lancashire website. And there's a link further up I sent at one of the first few slides about the resource section, but I'll come to that in a minute. So you can download it straight from there. You can also download your cash flow forecast. You can download a full-on business plan. Direct.gov or gov.uk has loads and loads and loads of information for self-employed, limited companies, tax, VAT. There's loads there. I would say go into one little bit, research what you need to find out and come back out, and then you can download whatever you want. There is a private company called Strategizer, which can, again, you need to put your details in to download the business model canvas, and anybody uses Canva, there is a version on there. Otherwise, stick to Growth Lancashire. This is what a business model canvas could look like. This is the one from Growth Lancashire. So you've got several headings, which I think would be good to prompt everybody, even if you've already started, maybe you can revisit this as a checklist. So who are your key partners? And in there, what you've got is several little bullet points of what that means. What did I say? Physio. So if I was a physio before, I might partner up with several sports organisations that they could recommend my services, or I could do a day or a morning in their premises, and we may come to an agreement where I can refer them people, they could refer me, or there's a financial trade that for everybody that refer me, they get a percentage or whatever. So are there any key partners you could be looking at? Besides that referral type system, are there partners where you're, for example, people who are in the IT sector often partner up with, say, Microsoft for various certifications to give you that seal of approval saying we're a Microsoft official partner or an Apple partner or whoever. So I'm not saying you need this. What I'm saying to you is ascertain if it's something that's going to help you either increase your brand awareness, solidify your reputation, or get you referrals for paying clients. So that's your key partners you can put in there. Key activities, what is it you're going to be doing? The revenue streams, it's quite self-explanatory there. So you've got production, problem solving. Then you've got, to the right of it, you've got your value proposition. This is a bit about helping people understand, getting straight to the point, cutting to the chase of what somebody's going to get by experiencing your certain brand of magic, depending on what you do. Whether you're a marketer, whether you're a business consultant, whether you're doing online, store, retail, whatever it is, what's the wow stuff that you do? And here's where you need to put your value proposition in, which then you can take from here and add it to things like your LinkedIn, your Instagram, your TikTok, your website, any brochures, electronic brochures you might have, any leaflets that you might produce. It'll all be nice and neat in there for you, as well as people that you might speak to on the phone, take inquiries. If you have a chat bot, all that comes in there. So there's a phrase, sell them the sizzle, not the steak, or sell them the sizzle, not the sausage. So you want to attract people in that initial bit first. The rest of it will come easier when you've got them 80% hooked on the benefits, what you can produce. I can save you 30% of your time every week. That'll put money back in your pocket. I just made that up, by the way. That'll put money back in your pocket and make you a more productive and leaner organisation. That's the thing I'm going in with. The how, when asked, is the bit I'll say, well, we use this, or we use an electronic system, or I come in once a month, or whatever it might be. Customer relationships. So this is going back to the customers you're trying to get to buy from you, sell to. Who are they? Where are they based? How are you going to maintain the relationships with these people? So, for example, Growth Lancashire, whether you want to call them customers, clients, they will have a list of people going back several years, but also in the last 6 months, last year, and they'll have methods of contacting these people, whether it's by telephone, whether it's through a customer relationship management system. So it could be done by email. You'll have people that have been encouraged to sign up to the possibly newsletter, the LinkedIn page, following the website. So there's lots of touch points. Now, if, for example, tomorrow there was a new scheme for businesses based in, I don't know, Padiham or somewhere, or Preston or South Ribble or Chorley, just for that lot, or across Lancashire, very quickly Jill and the team can bring up the information to say, here's who we've got in South Ribble, here's who we've got in Preston, here's who we've got in West Lancashire. We can then agree which way do we contact them. Shall we send them all an email? Shall we send them all a text message? Shall we ring them all? And we'll know exactly when was the last time we came into contact with them. So I had something drop through to me earlier today from somewhere, I can't remember now, but it said, hi Latif, you were involved with us, when was it now? Was it last year or something? As a trusted this, that and the other, we're just touching base with you again. We've got the following options available. I can't remember what it was about, but it was something, they knew quite a lot about my interaction with them. Now, if you haven't got something like a paid CRM, there is some free ones, which you can Google. You can look on YouTube. If not, a simple spreadsheet or a Word document with lots of tables in would suffice. Yeah. So you can keep on top of this customer relationship. Your customer segments, which is next right, are age group, gender, possibly ethnicity. If it, location might be certain postcodes, what else? Towns, cities, age groups. I can't remember if I've said that. Age groups. So for you know, whether it's Growth Lancashire, whether it's Shout Network, if we said we need to pull up all the information of how many male entrepreneurs have we supported in South Ribble in the last 12 months between the ages of this and that, we're able to pull that info out. Now, so what, you know, why would that make a difference? We could make a difference. It would make a difference because if, for example, a certain grouping was underrepresented, we could look at why that is. Is it because we did insufficient marketing, or is it the age group for that particular county, borough, ward just doesn't, you know, the average age group is over a certain amount. It's an older population. So maybe we've answered that. Or it might be that we haven't got enough provision in Burnley for this sort of entrepreneur. So when we have a new program, or if Shout Network's going to do something in that area, we need to encompass the following things. Hence, the marketing will be different. The way that we get the information out is different. That's why these two, customer relationships and customer segments, are really, really important. It'll save you money in the long run, especially when you realise you might not need to be on TikTok because your customers are not going to be on there. You know, just because Adam Smith next door is on there, or Michelle Smith further up the road is up there, it's because their customers are on there. They're going to view the content. They're going to engage and consume the content. Those views are going to lead to some form of action. My clients, for example, might be people that don't go on any of that. I remember a guy ages ago, he was into providing, sorry, it's a weird example. He was producing products for people that do pigeon racing, and also, believe it or not, nutrition and health products for the actual pigeons. And the most effective way he found promoting, advertising and marketing was through a paper newsletter that went out to all these people that were part of this club. And he put something in there. I mean, it wasn't really colourful, just black and white. But he had so many inquiries just from that, because none of them were on Facebook. They're definitely not going to be on TikTok. So it's understanding where you're going to get information out. Okie dokie. Key resources. What would you need to keep the operation flowing week to week, month to month? Now, some of the things might be things you can set up yourself at no cost or very little cost. Some things you might need to buy in. Then we've got channels. Channels are the way you're going to deliver your solution to somebody. So either I download an app, pay for the app, or I pay you and I get access to an app. And that's how one of the ways I'm engaging with whatever it is. If you're a personal trainer, I'm paying you £40 a month. I get access to the app, or my personal information's on there, or my, I don't know, nutrition, exercises on there. That's one way. Maybe there's a website. Maybe there's a private portal on a YouTube channel that's got lots of videos or something. The other way could be face-to-face. The other way could be an online store or online shop. So what you need to work out is how you're going to provide me the solution. What route are we going to take? Now, some people might have a mixture. So you might have a physical space, and then you might also have an online shop. If it's food-based, depends what it is, but if it's food-based, you might have a physical space, and then you might have when I say a third party, it might be one of these delivery companies that you can also order through, if it's one of those types of places. And then towards the bottom left, my left, is the cost structure. So you need to have worked out, I think we're going to come on to this in a bit, but you need to have worked out, what does it cost for me to provide the solution, whether it's online or face-to-face, and how much should you or I charge, not for what it costs. So if I spent £5 making, I don't know, a phone case, I think what I'll do is all my expenditure, everything, is going to cost me a maximum of £5. If I get them in bulk, I might pay £4 for them each. So I'll just sell them for £6. If the quality and the brand around the case is aimed at a customer segment that wants something a little bit different and are willing to pay and can afford to pay, I could sell that phone case because of the branding and the marketing to a group of people that want a little bit quirky, to maybe 15 quid 10 quid, knowing that they can afford it and they are looking for that. And I might sell on places like Etsy, I might have an online store myself, but the way it's all marketed and branded, it isn't for example, my kids that might buy it off eBay or Amazon, or because they might get a phone case for 5 or 6 quid. This is more designed for people that are willing to really stand out, and for them, £14 for a phone case is a good investment. The other people who think not, they're not my target market. So that's the cost structure. If you think about certain technology you may have bought, phones, tablets, computers of a certain type and a certain brand, what is it that attracted you to buy that particular brand? So we've got, this is just a weird example. You got a pair of jeans from Primark. There's a certain price attached to them. There's a certain quality attached to them. And maybe there's a bit of a life expectancy attached to them. Not only in terms of its stitching and everything else, you know, the washing, and if it does go in colour. I mean, they're quite good quality, but nevertheless, there's a certain expectation based on where you're buying it from and how much you are paying for it. If you went to Next, River Island, Dorothy Perkins type places, what kind of expectation would you have spending money at those places? And again, the price would reflect what you've just bought. And how long would you expect that to last? Where would you wear it, for example? Where would you like to be seen to be wearing it? And then if you bought something that had a label on, a design label, the jeans might not be too far away from somewhere decent that you got some of the stuff from. But because of that badge and one's infinity to that badge, those jeans that you're wearing or somebody's wearing might be 200, 300 quid. So now we're entering into the realm of having a tribe, you could call it. And if you want to look at more things to do with tribes, there's a guy called Seth Godin, Sethgodin. It's like a marketer guru from the US. Another guy's called Gary Vaynerchuk, or Gary V. You can look at some of his stuff. But there's lots of people. But what I'm saying is there's a value attached to that particular garment. Now, there may be certain people initially can't afford those jeans or that jacket. So what it could be for those people is an aspirational product. So if, for example, Jill was to walk in the office tomorrow and she had a Hugo Boss coat or a Stone Island top or whatever, and I thought, oh, that looks really nice. Then I find out how much it costs. I could be an aspirational purchaser, meaning I might need to save up X amount of money for the next 6 months in order to buy that. Other people, their wardrobe generally would be filled with the Hugo Bosses, the Armanis, the Versaces, the whatever it might be. And what would happen is if you went out and about, people from that tribe would recognize each other on an unconscious level. Plus, I feel I'm part of something because I'm wearing a particular brand's clothing. So that's where the way it makes me feel, the way it makes me look, and also partly it's where maybe I'm recognized. So if you took Range Rover, you took a Range Rover, not many people in a Range Rover generally go off-road. So if you looked at a status symbol, it would fit the bill. Yes, it's comfortable and it'll have lots of features, but generally, if you wanted to go off-road for real, you'd pick maybe a Land Rover, maybe a Land Rover Defender if you live out in the sticks in the farmland. I suppose you can still have a Range Rover, but generally most people that purchase a Land Rover isn't for going off-roading. It's mainly for the status side of things. There are many Japanese, US, there's lots of other 4x4 that will do a really good job going off-roading. So that's what I mean by when you apply a cost structure, what is going to attract people from your target market that are more than happy to pay whatever it is you're asking. And the price is what the market can bear. So despite recessions, despite cost of living, despite the recent budgets, when I say recent, last year, there are still people going out buying things from, say, flannels, and independent designer shops where a shirt could cost you 100 quid, a t-shirt could cost you 80 quid. So there is a market there. People are still spending, otherwise these places would be all shut down. So that for me is very, very important, and I'll go on about it a bit. Revenue streams is how many different ways can money come into your business. So if we were Shout Connect, we do business networking. That's one revenue stream. People pay for a yearly membership. Then we've got brand packages for certain businesses. So that's more marketing and branding. So that's another package on its own. We have the exhibitions. So you don't need to be a member unless you want to. Otherwise, you can just pay us a fee to exhibit. That's the second one. Then we do events throughout the year, linking up with colleges, universities, but also private business for apprenticeship programs and things like that. And then the fourth revenue stream is applying for business support program. And there's other things in between as well. So when we haven't got all our eggs in one basket. Now, your business might not have a number of revenue streams, which is fine. But what you can do is try to work out if you do have the capability to introduce them. So, for example, a couple of PTs I know started off predominantly working out of somebody else's gym, meaning you would pay them in cash in the old days per session. Then they started to change it and introduced it and said, right, let's see, if I'm only doing eight clients, no more, and everybody needs to pay monthly, and I'm taking the money out at the beginning of the month. After that, the one-to-ones became a luxury, and they started moving the business model to online, and they started getting clients from, over time and effort, they started getting clients from all over the world. They still do a little bit of individual one-to-one stuff and small group sessions, which they charge a premium for, because there'll only be me and 5 others in that small class. If it's just me, they can charge me a lot more, because now I'm getting this person's expertise different than a trainer that's got lots of one-to-ones through the week. This person only does a select amount of one-to-ones, because the majority of their work, like 90% of their work, is selling online nutrition plans, exercise programs, and all the rest of it, charging anything between 40 quid to £100 a month. So that's how you can scale a business as well as introduce new revenue streams. Okay, do we have any questions on this bit? Anybody?
There's been
no, there doesn't seem to be.
Sorry, Debbie, there's been quite a bit of connecting going on in the chat, which is really good to see. A couple of people have asked for advisor contact, but we've been dealing with it as we've been going along, Latif, so
Okay,
that's fine.
brilliant. All right,
Thanks.
brilliant.
Matt did ask a question about sharing details with everybody, but I thought, maybe that's something that you can address at the end.
So
I did.
What
I
I
did,
would say,
I did actually put into the chat,
Go on, Jo.
and I've had one reply. If anybody doesn't want their details shared, can they let me know? Otherwise, I'll just email everybody's contact details through tomorrow. I put it in the chat, and one person has sent me an email saying, please don't share my details. So if anybody else doesn't want details sharing, you can just email me or put it in the chat, or you can email me, jill.millington@growthlancashire.co.uk. Gabrielle, please don't share mine. Okay, I'll make a note of that. Thank you. Sorry, back to Latif.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Legal aspects. So if you've not started yet, you've got a bit of time to do some test trading before you think about registering self-employed. What I've got here is 6 options based on the way you feel you want to set up your legal structure. So if we go from left, downward sort of way and then move on to the right. So you've got sole trader. Sole trader is kind of one of the easiest ways to get going. It's what is known as I am self-employed, which there's quite a lot of information on direct, I keep calling it direct.gov, gov.uk. It allows you to essentially manage your own way of information to HMRC, Majesty's Revenue and Customs, to say you are now earning money from a different source for yourself, and it's a way to declare that. In terms of setup, you can set it up yourself online. Me personally, you don't need an accountant unless you want to go to one, or a bookkeeper. You can just do that yourself. There's so much information online that I would say just take it in steps of what is a sole trader. It allows you, so if I was a sole trader today as a bookkeeper, I've just started out, I'm offering bookkeeping services, I can register self-employed, I can then turn around to a group of people and go, look, I can do your bookkeeping for you. All I need to do is keep a record of all my expenditure and income, and I can do that using, if I want to do it for free, I can have spreadsheets, Word documents and those sorts of things. I can send invoices out, which I've done myself, or I've got a template from somewhere keeping the costs down. And at the end of the year, so that period runs from the 6th of April to the 5th of April. And then you've got deadlines within which to either do a paper-based submission to Revenue and Customs or an online submission. Generally, it's the end of January. You can submit. Depends which way you want to do it. When you do your online submission, what they are looking for is how much income have you made and how much have you spent. Now, this takes into account if I'm working part-time and if I'm working for Shout full-time, but at the same time, evenings and weekends, I'm fixing people's cars, example, or I don't know, I've got a cleaning job. So I finish here and at 6 o'clock, I go around to all these offices and I clean, and at the weekends I clean. So somebody's paying me money and it's not employed. So I'm sending them an invoice. That can then be put into there to say, I have earned an extra £5,000 on top of my wage. So everybody has a personal allowance. Your personal allowance, I forgot the thing now, is it like 14 grand or something? Whatever everybody's personal allowance is for before you get taxed, anything above that, personal allowance is £12,570. Anything I earn above that is taxable, whether I'm working or whether I'm self-employed. So if I'm working for Shout, naturally, if I'm working full time, my personal allowance has already been met, my national insurance has been met, my tax has been met. So really all I'm declaring is my cleaning job in the evenings and weekends or whatever else I'm doing. On the strength of what I'm submitting, including expenditure, I will get a calculation back from Revenue and Customs from, you can set up an account and everything, but when I used to do it, it just used to be very simple. That says, you've earned £10,000, Steve. You have spent £5,000. The difference is £5,000, which you are now going to pay tax of up to 20%. I think you're allowed up to £50,000 on a 20%. Yeah. It's a 50 grand. Yeah, 20% tax, you can do that. Now, if you're asking about what expenditure this will be, if all of you lot came, imagine all of you lot came from wherever you are here, your mileage can be charged at 45 pence a mile. So you wouldn't do your receipt unless you, VAT receipt unless you're VAT registered. So travelling here, 45p a mile from here back to your base or back to your home. If you attended here early and you decided to nip across to Starbucks and got yourself something to eat, you'd keep that kind of receipt. And then on the gov.uk, there are certain sections which will tell you a portion that you can accumulate for your mobile phone, because you might not have a separate business landline, sorry, a business mobile, or if you're working from home, your heating, lighting. So I don't want to go into too much detail about what those percentages are, but if you think about any business expenditure, so again, if you bought a laptop and you're using it predominantly for the sake of your business, or a MacBook or whatever it is, those sorts of things. And there's a whole list of things on Gov.uk, which I put on I think it's the second or third slide of this presentation. You've got the Gov.uk there. And whether you are a sole trader limited company, it's all about that, charities, everything. So it's easy to set up. However, what you are doing is, it's easy to manage, easy to submit. But if you're in a role, or if you're in a sector where, for example, imagine I'm making blouses or jackets or blazers, and Debbie, who's on this call, is supplying me with raw materials. So at the beginning, she might say, right, there's so many yards of material taken off me, or so many rolls, that comes to £1,500. I want the money up front. So I give her £1,500 up front. Now I've got to wait to make all these things for my client, sell them and get the money in order to pay myself and get my next batch. But after a certain amount of time, Debbie starts trusting me, and maybe she allows me to open an account. So now she says to me, for every £1,500 of material you buy, you don't have to pay me up front. You can pay me according to her payment terms, which could be 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. And if she likes me and she trusts me enough, she might say, look, I know you're trying to make a go of it, so I'm not going to ask you to do it in 30 days. I'll give you 60 days. So that you take the material. Now you have 60 days to make all these things, ship them out, get paid, and then you pay me. So everything's going fine until, I don't know, something happens in my shop. Maybe something happens, whatever it is, touch wood, it doesn't. But now I've got all this material, all these garments that I've made, but there's nobody to buy them. My landlord's telling me to pay up. I now have a problem paying Debbie back. Now, the nice thing would be for me to go and speak to her. We come up with some payment plans and blah, blah, blah. But if we don't reach a suitable agreement, because she's got bills to pay, the worst case scenario is if Debbie was to call in a finance company, bailiffs, anything of my private assets I have. So, for example, my house, the car I'm driving, if it's under my name, my big 70-inch TV, all of that kind of assets technically could be possessed, sold off, and then the money returned to Debbie. That's the worst case scenario. Before that, there's mitigation and all sorts of things. But that is one of the things people may be left open to. If you're a sole trader, you're in a training company, or any other type of, what you can do is you can then take public liability and public indemnity insurance. So basically business insurance that might cover you for certain things. So if I'm a trainer and I'm training people in health and safety first aid, I book a room from Jill in her venue. I've got 15 people in a room. You know, I've done as much as I can. You know, all the leads have got that yellow and black thing on, signs post everywhere. But I don't know, somehow somebody trips over a wire, and now 2 days later they put a lawsuit on me saying it's my fault. Now I'm hoping the venue's covered, but if they're after me, I've got sufficient business insurance to cover that, and then it becomes what's reasonable. So that's sole trader, if that makes sense. Gone into a little bit more detail than I wanted to, but again, doesn't cost anything to set up, easy to run, very easy to manage with revenue and customs. Next one underneath is partnerships. Partnerships would be where two people, me and Sue Denver, for example, operating together. Either we have the same amount of percentage in the business, 50% each, based on roles and responsibilities. But when it comes to reporting, revenue and customs know that we are both in a business partnership, and whatever needs to be paid, if anything needs to be paid, it's coming from two people. Everything else stands as in a partnership. So we're both liable. So if if I decide to take loads of money out the bank account and go to the Bahamas for 4 months and leave everybody bleeding dry, unfortunately, Sue is left with 50% of the bill to pay creditors, unhappy customers and all the rest of it until she gets on with me. So again, if you are entering into a partnership, you need to think about having some robust legal documentation about who owns what, if anything does go wrong. The amount of people I've worked with, when they started off, they were best friends, husband and wife, partner, or we've been kids since we're 7. Sometimes we're a bit reluctant to talk about shareholder agreements or partnership agreements, but I'm glad I did. And the ones that took that on board, it just helped them. Not everything went up in a disaster, but when certain people turned around and said, it's not really working out, I want to amicably move across, but everything's there. How much you invested into the business, how much I've invested, time, finance, the whole thing. Because, for example, me and say, I've got Purvis on the call, right? So me and Purvis set up a business partnership. It turns out that Purvis is doing 90% of the work. I'm not really doing anything. So when it comes to selling the business, moving away from the business, I might go, right, the company or the business is worth 100, 200 grand. So what it is, if you just buy me out, well, Purvis might be really nice and go, yeah, that's fine. But Purvis's wife, brother, uncle, friend might go, hang on a minute. He hasn't done anything. He's only been, for the last 3 years, he's only been put in 10% of the work. So surely, when you're divvying up shares in this, if he's asking for you to buy him out, he doesn't deserve 50%. So there's things like that need to be covered. And things, if we started off 50% equal partners, and if he's quickly realised Latif's not much cop for anything, we can review that and go, Latif, look, I'm seeing you're very much of a backseat driver in all of this. So we need to review. I need to take 80% of the shares. If you're only doing 20% of the work, that's what you own. And when it comes to how much money we take out of the business, excuse me, you're only taking out 20%. So it is in your best interest, no matter how much we love each other, how long we get on with each other. It needs to be fair, not just for yourself, but other people involved in your life. Private limited company. This is something you can set up yourself. Majority of people either will go to their accountant or a local accountant who may charge you to set one up. There is a small charge to set one up. The difference between a private limited company and a sole trader or a partnership is the limited company is a separate entity to me as the individual, even though I could own it, or me and somebody else could be 2 directors of a limited company. So a little bit more when it comes to setup, a little bit more when it comes to your year end and what you need to submit. So there are people I've known over the years that have done it all themselves, and their brain works a different way. I couldn't do it myself. Most people I know that have got a limited company tend to go through an accountant. So if you're going to go down that route, you need to find out somebody's already got an accountant, what they're going to charge you. But is having a limited company going to serve you if your operation, if the size of your commercial activities fits nicely into just being a sole trader, and there's no risk of me buying all this material, or I'm always going to be having accounts that I might one day not be able to pay for. Limited company does give you status. So the lad I had in earlier on before I started this call, they wanted to work with large businesses like business parks, maybe local authorities on sports grounds and that kind of thing. If I was a sole trader, they probably won't want to work with me. And some businesses of a certain size would want to look at you being a limited company with a few years, you've been trading, a healthy record of your financial status. They definitely don't want to see anything that you've been taken to court or you've got outstanding payments. So you've got that air up to a point of being taken seriously. You are then, as part of, you can be found on Companies House. All UK companies, England and Wales, can be found on there. So before somebody makes a decision, they can type in your company name, they can see who the directors are, who's left, who's resigned, a copy of some of the, a watered down version of your financials, any statements. What it will allow you to do is, if there was abc.com, and that's my company, it would allow me to trade under that company. I could be an employee of that company, which allow me to pay myself a wage. Any assets that belong to the company could, if there was anything where, if I owed Debbie money, so imagine I owed Debbie money for all this material I've been getting, but I had a limited company. Now, the unfortunate thing for Debbie would be, is she could send people around to claim the money back. Now, if I'm living in a £500,000 house, driving a £100,000 car, but those two things, those two assets are in my private name, the bailiffs or the money recovery people couldn't touch that. They could only see what is in the account money wise for the limited company, or what assets does the company own. So if we had, so imagine if I had the limited company but working from home, whatever the company owns, if I produced what's the word now? If I purchased a laptop but it's under the company, that's up for grabs. Furniture, if I've got a small office and there's furniture we've purchased, any equipment, anything that could be sold to retrieve Debbie's money for the company. So that's where some of the differences are with a limited company. It's a separate legal entity. You can have shares in a company. Different people can have shares. You can offer shares out. And then you could have a limited company with no shares. So you could have a limited company that pays dividends. So you could pay yourself a dividend on top of paying yourself a wage. So some accountants might say to you that, how much do you want to earn? And you might say, well, I want to earn 30, 40, 50 grand a year. But they'll advise you not to put that through PAYE of an employee of your company. What they might do is say, right, what we're going to do is pay PAYE, the minimum wage, the very basics. So that's a good, healthy tax indicator to save you money on tax. And then what we can do is the rest of your monies that take it up to 30, 40, 50 grand or whatever you want, based on, you can only pay yourself a dividend if the money's there. No point. You can't, if the company bank account's got 100 grand in, fair enough, you can pay yourself whatever you've decided. But if there's no money in that company bank account, you can't pay yourself a dividend, and you might be struggling yourself to pay a wage. So that's where that differs. That one was this one. A limited liability partnership is usually several directors coming together under one roof and operating under one sort of business umbrella, taking equal responsibility. So examples of this would be solicitors' firms. We have several partners that have an equal, generally they'll have an equal percentage of what they can earn, and responsibilities and shares and all those sorts of things. Accountancy firms, possibly architects firms. So a lot of professional service firms have this model, an LLP. So we've done sole trader, partnerships, limited companies in different formats, limited liability partnerships, and then we've got what we call the third sector. So either it's a community interest company, or we've got something that's called a social enterprise. Both of these can operate like a limited company. The difference is the aims and the ethos around setting these up. So if I was from Preston and I wanted to serve the community of all of Preston, or Brookfield, or whatever it was, and I want to work with people who have, I don't know, suffering from or likely to have, or support families who somebody somewhere is affected by Alzheimer's or dementia for one reason or another. My community nurses company could be set up to have lots of services and activities that preferably isn't available on the mainstream, or if it is available on the mainstream, there's a lack of how many appointments you can get. So I want to do something for the betterment of my community. Social enterprise, it would be the same. The difference between a CIC and a social enterprise is the social enterprise would be regulated, so to speak, by Companies House. The CIC, you're regulated a little bit more through something called the CIC or the KIC regulator, and within that there's something called the asset lock. It's basically a way of protecting any finances that come into both statuses. So either you put in money, either you're looking for sponsorships, or you may be able to apply for certain funds. So that could be the National Lottery, might be the Arts Council, Sport England, private trusts, based on what you're looking at. So whether I'm supporting the Alzheimer's and people who are suffering from dementia, there may be another one further down the road. They've got a CIC. That might be for people with learning difficulties, maybe another one other side of Preston that looking to support men, just men with mental health. And, you know, it's all backed up. For each of these, it's backed up by lots of quality research to say why this CIC or social enterprise is being set up in the first place, despite certain things already being available through the NHS or NHS's partners, NHS in the community. You know, there'll be reasons why there's a justification. Now, what happens is, imagine social enterprise number one or community interest company number one, we managed to get £100 each from different people. So there's 10 people, £100 each as a donation. They don't want it back. We've got £1,000 to play around with. We have to set up memorandums of association. Was it memorandums of article? I forgot now. Memorandums and article and memorandums of association. These are the guiding principles of what it's about, how you're going to govern the whole thing. You might have trustees, board members on board, what the response, and a lot of these people, if not all of them, will be doing it in initially a voluntary capacity. Further down the line, once you're able to get maybe sponsorships, you apply for certain money, whether it's from National Lottery, you might be able to employ somebody part-time to help with the finances, a volunteer coordinator. So it's very much that. But remember, the ethos is to help other people in your community. A year down the line, if, I don't know, somebody from that community who now lives in wherever around the world finds out about it and goes, you know what, I grew up there, I'm going to send you 500 grand or 200 grand. You know, it's all above board and everything. But that 200 grand, you can spend it on all either subsidised activities or fully funded activities. So what I mean is, if we have a certain area of Preston, there may be certain people that their circumstances are, instead of paying, I don't know, £40 for an art therapy class, we might go, I know you can afford it, but what we're going to do is you just pay 20. For somebody else in the community, based on their circumstances, they're not going to be able to afford 40 and they're not going to be able to afford 20. So again, depending on how we work it out, we might say we've got 8 places for people where they're fully funded for these art classes or going out and doing some, I don't know, might be a media project that helps people. Nevertheless, all the money in the bank account can only be spent back on either wages for people who are directly responsible for that project, or activities related to the project. So it might be, we've noticed that we've been getting a minibus taxi to keep going between one end of Preston to another Preston, and then we need to go to Chorley or Blackburn or Accrington, yeah? What we've decided is, because the demand's getting greater, why don't we look at buying a minibus? So these are the only things that you can then buy. We might pay for somebody to go through there. Is it Midas? Whatever qualification you need to drive a minibus, we might help towards the insurance and those things we can do. if we run this social enterprise and community interest company for the next 5 years, 10 years, and we all come to a certain age and nobody else wants to take it over, what we can't do, whether there's 100 grand in the bank or 1 million in the bank, we can't all then go, it's been a good run, let's all divide the money up and then, you know, move abroad. We can't do that. What you have to do, especially with this CIC and its asset lock, we have to make sure the money then is either reappropriated to a similar organisation, and there's lobby forms and things to make sure that down to the last penny, it's all accounted for, and we can then transfer it to a like-for-like community interest company or a social enterprise. All the assets, if we had offices with chairs, desk, printer, photo, all that needs to be going somewhere. So when everything shuts down, there should be no liquid in the bank. It's all been gone. And there's a trail, it's very transparent, and every single piece of furniture, flat screen TV has gone somewhere for the better good of a community, preferably that aligns your values, you know, closest to what you were doing or similar to. That's a whistle-stop tour of some of the legal statuses or legal aspects you could have. Are there any specific questions on this bit by anybody before I move on?
No, I don't see anything.
Yeah, is that all right? Now, what you can do, if you wanted to go into more detail, you could either speak to me or you could speak to one of the respective advisors and say, look, partnership's out for me, but I won't mind more info. Or could I just check with you about a sole trader? So the person I spoke to earlier on has been a sole trader, but now they're wanting to, now the operation's getting bigger and they want to start applying for larger contracts. And some of the people they know in the industry, it makes more sense for them to set up a private limited company. So they're investigating that or exploring the best way to do that. Right, finance could be the backbone of any successful business. There may be lots of other things like sales and marketing and brand. There's all of that. But if you're not looking after your money, you don't know what's happening with your money and what's happening in the next 3 months, you really essentially you could run into trouble. Now, this is something called a personal survival budget, which I can't remember if it's on the resource section for Growth Lancashire. Most possibly will. If not, it's definitely on the gov.uk website. All this is a snapshot of your personal expenditure if you've not done this already. Now, you don't have to do this. It's a recommendation. The reason why I recommend people do it is you have a good understanding of what your lifestyle is like currently without making any serious adjustments to it. So that will be your fuel, food, if you know, your shop, your small shop, your big shop, but also food that you might get from a takeaway. If you're used to going out for a meal and some drinks 3-4 times a month, clothing, electricity, water, your gas and all that kind of stuff, your mobile phone bill. Think of every single thing that you're currently paying out for, and in the right-hand side column, you can start putting it in. Right, round it up. And then what you can do is, at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll be left with sort of a golden figure. That's the figure you would start off with when it comes to pricing your product or service. Now, some businesses might not make a profit or turn a profit straight away. So within those scenarios, you might go, well, obviously this month I needed to clear at least 800 quid or £1,000 just to keep myself afloat. You might have only come up with 400 quid. So you know that you're £200 down, and it might be then predicting or forecasting when you can, what we call break even. It's when you can sell for a certain amount, but the expenditure brings up the same amount. So I think that's a good exercise just to let you know, because when you're in a position where you want to put a special offer on, when somebody says, well, if I took 10 extra sessions, what discount can you give me? Is it okay if you did it instead of £1,500? Would you do it for 1,100? At any point, you would need to know that by giving that amount of an discount, how much percentage of profit are you cutting into? So every bottle of water I sell, how much profit, if I sell this bottle of water for £3.50 for the transport, the packaging and everything, right? How much am I making? So Spud Brothers, for those that know Spud Brothers, they did a video sometime last year. I think it was round about the time that their gig, or is it Lytham Festival, got rained off or something, and they'd paid, I don't know if they got the money back, but what they said is a lot of people think we make loads and loads of money and we're selling these potatoes for £8.99 or just call it a tenner. And he said, what we want to do in today's videos, we want to tell you what happens to that £10 when we're on a pitch like Lytham or whatever. And I broke it down. And different people thought, well, if they sell it for a tenner, they're making £6, it may be £5. So I can't remember the lad's name, but whoever the lad was doing the video, one of the brothers, broke down insurance, pitch fees, staffing, the ingredients, the heating, you name it, and he was whittling it down. And at the end, I think it worked out to be that every potato they sell, after everything's gone out, they make, this was then, they make something like 160 or 180 per potato. Now, if you look at volume, like if they're doing 200 spuds a day, then you could top that up. Then income from things like whatever they make on TikTok, that's separate. So just saying to somebody, right, he's selling 200 spuds a day, £10 a pop. So that's how much? £2,000, is it? Was it 20 grand? I can't remember now. My head's getting thinking. But whatever it comes to, it's not the be all and end all once you take the overall expenditure out. And this, I feel, can help you understand your personal financial position. I think it's really, really important myself. And it should be something. So imagine you're driving your car, if you've got one, or if you can hypothetically understand of somebody flying a plane. Car is a little bit easier once you get used to it, but as you're driving your car, you're still looking out in your peripheral vision of your side mirrors, your main rear view mirror, and then you're looking at your gauges, maybe the speedometer, well, definitely speedometer, but your rev counter and anything else. That's our responsibility to take that information in. As we get used to it, it becomes second nature. If somebody's flying a plane, you're looking at every single gauge, wind pressure, height, everything. Similar to that, whether it's your marketing element, but definitely your financial planning is, are you setting aside a little bit of time once a week, 30 minutes, once a fortnight, but definitely once a month of what's been happening in your business financially? Now, you might have access to either your own, like QuickBooks, is it QuickBooks? Yeah. And other ones for self-employed people. Your accountant might give you their software, whether it's Xero or I forgot the other one now, Xero or Sage or something. So it's a ready-made system where you can enter all your figures of what's coming in, what's going out, and it'll give you a nice little projection of what you're likely to have and what the money's looking like and give you graphs. I think that's your responsibility. Even if you have got an accountant, you should still have that understanding of where you're at. If you've got a proactive accountant, they should be tapping you up and say, listen, I think you're going to be earning this sort of threshold, so I think we should get you registered VAT. I think in the next 6 months, 8 months, it looks like we're projected to make so much money. So are you going to be buying any more laptops? Would you be, if you're thinking of buying a new van, July's the time to be buying it, and here's some options. If we went for an electric vehicle, here's how the tax saving would work on that particular thing. So that's where the accountant would come in, and that's how you would work those out. So pricing I've talked about. What does it cost you to make it, but also what's the value when it comes to selling it? What are the factors? Just because Charlie Smith down the road is charging £8.99 for, I don't know, burgers and chips, do I need to charge the same? I might need to charge more because my overheads are more, but then I need to maybe look at a way of packaging that of why I'm £1 or £2 dearer for whatever I'm selling. A certain type of clothing, because it just costs me more to keep the shop open and the staff and everything else. I can't really afford to sell it any less than 25 quid. If I sell that jacket for £25, I make an X percentage of profit. It could be £8, £9, which then tells me how many jackets I need to sell, or trousers or blouses, which can then help me plan not just marketing, but when I'm working with my team, that's whoever they are, if we might introduce, what do they call them now? KPIs, key performance indicators, or basically just some targets, and go, right, guys, if we have a good month of selling so many jackets or so much perfume this month, if we hit this figure of 15 grand, everybody's going to get a bonus of whatever it is. So that's where all these other things can be incentivized, but it starts off at some really weird place. Do not undervalue your product or service, especially when somebody's trying to get a discount. If anything, upsell them. So there's a laptop here. I'm trying to sell you this laptop and you're saying, oh, well, you know, it's 700 quid. No, I'm just wondering, I'm looking for something 500 quid. Great. If I've got something, I'll go, well, let's get away from this one. But if they're adamant of having this for 500 quid, it's not really going to happen. What I can do is give them all the reasons to upsell it to them and say, oh, okay, that's your budget 500. You can have this one, but I know you're after this one. Now, if we break that down, of that 200 quid spread over 12 months, how much does that work out per month, per day? And it might be like 86 pence a day. And just say, look, Sharon, for the price of 86, I'm just guessing, yeah, for the price of 86 pence a day, you'll have a laptop or whatever it is, which is faster, more reliable, comes with a guarantee, allows you to do this, that, and the other, which is perfect for what you need it for. And then the rest of it's more sales tactics, if anything. You know, certain element, you do need to stand your ground. And again, the advisors, myself, can talk you through that. There will be other workshops that Growth Lancashire will be putting on, and there are, on the resource section, some presentations already loaded, which you can take a look at. Consider the cost to produce the whatever it is. We've talked a little bit about this earlier on. How much does it cost you? Some people, if they're making shoes, they'll be able to tell you, especially handmade shoes, even if you went like Clark's, they'll be able to tell you how long it takes for a certain shoe or boot to come off the production line and how much it costs for the labour. Like if I was working, they'll say, right, we pay Latif this amount, and per hour, this is what we pay him, and per hour, this is how many shoes we get off the line. So I'm not saying you got to that level of detail, but you should have a certain understanding, which will only help you. You know why? Because in time, you can upgrade your services, end up charging more for your product or service, which will allow you more time to work on your business or more time for yourself, depending what leisure activities are. You've got A clients, B clients, C clients. A clients, they will pay what you want because they understand the value. They will pay you upfront if the option was there. They'll tell you, or they'll ask you, do you need me to do a testimonial for you? Do you want me to do a video? I'm going to tell 50 of my family and friends about you. Client B, they'll be happy if you ask them for a testimonial to give you one. They might not go shouting your name, your business name from the rooftops. If you ask them, they'll be more than happy to do it. They might refer just off their own back, but if you ask them, they'll definitely do it. They're steady, as in repeat business. So B's are good. Can we transfer B's into A's? C clients, if you just want to draw a line with them, C clients would be, they want the laptop. They want the laptop for free, first of all. If they can't get it for free, they're going to tell you every sob story under the roof and see if they can get a reconditioned one for nothing. And if there is a £500 laptop, they'll try everything against the rules to try to get you a laptop by, you know, I don't know, can I pay you £5 a week? We don't do that, unfortunately, sir. It's just messing about. The thing with that person is, imagine the laptop doesn't come preloaded with Microsoft Office. That's the next thing they'll be asking for. Whereas clients A and B, you tell them once and say, it doesn't come with preloaded software. If you want it, it's an extra this. Otherwise, head over there and you can buy a license, or you can go direct to Microsoft and buy a license. Thank you very much. Off I'll go. Whereas the other one is, well, I went to my uncle's and they've got this other laptop and he was telling me this, and you'll never see the back of them. They'll always come back for more memory, nothing to do with you. You've sold them a laptop. So if you think about products and services, you do not want C clients. If you've got C clients, it's up to you if you want to keep them. Manage them out the process. There might be one or two that you can swing around to become in the B category. But otherwise, these are the ones that will take up majority of your time for the least amount of return on investment. They'll suck you dry, they'll leave you drained. No disrespect to them, it might be where they work, they might be doing that with everything. You know, if you were the best mate, they might get you the best 2 weeks holiday abroad. I don't know. But from a business point of view, if you do want to help people, you could do certain things pro bono without setting up a social enterprise. You might go, what I'm willing to do is at the end of every month, I will give 10 hours of my time, no more than 10, as a HR specialist. And I'm going to do it through this charity. The charity just comes to me and says, look, I've got 10 people, an hour slot at a time. When the 10 hours run out, just let us know. That's me giving back to the community. So there are things like that. Consider the cost of your time overall and what your profit margins, which I've alluded to before. So based on what it costs you to make it and what it costs you to sell it, even if it's you've got a Black Friday sale, you've got introductory 10% off. In terms of the percentage of profit, is it 30% profit, 40%, 15%? What is the profit margin? When it comes to financial planning continued, where are you getting the money from? If you've already started, where did you use the money? Can you rely on that source? Is it going to be your savings? Now, if you're putting in £5,000 out of your own savings, you can put it in as a loan, which means that when the business earns that say the business earns 15 grand, what you can then do is make sure it's all logged and everything, and it's in your cash flow, introducing as a director's loan. You're saying that I lent myself, as in the company, or even as a sole trader, £5,000 on whatever date it was. A year down the line, I've got enough funds. I want my 5,000 back to my private account. The other thing I forgot to mention is make sure you don't get any of your current accounts mixed up with your business account, business transactions. Try and avoid another current account which you're using just for business. The banks generally are not going to be too happy when they find out. What you can do is look at, is it Martin Lewis? See what business bank accounts you can get at, say, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months free business banking, which means any interactions with the bank, in, out, everything, they don't charge you, and there's no monthly charge. Now, there are kind of just online only, so you can Google that. The one's called Tide, Tide, where you're not going to get the same type of customer support as you signed up with somebody else. You might not be able to go into a branch. It's very much online. With those, it might be that there is no monthly charge. So once your grace period finishes, like if you've got 12 months interest free, everything you put in and taking out, there's no charge. There's no monthly charge. After 12 months, you will be charged by your bank a set fee per month. And based on your, what do they call them, transactions, depending on what they are and how many they are, there'll be a set fee. And then you can claim that as expenses, but then obviously that's something to bear in mind of. Crown, what else have we got? What are we up to now? Yeah, you can do startup loans. There is the UK startup loans company that's headed up from kind of London. Locally, you've got Rosebud Finance, which is part of Lancashire County Council. Again, the advisors can appropriately help you understand not only where to get the money from, like as in loans mainly, but also what the repayment might be, and is it realistic for you? Then you've got other ones which is going to be just pop into your own building society and bank. Grants are going to be few and far between unless you're in a certain sector that's promoted by local government and national government. The things that you might be getting as of this evening and anything you might continue working with us on going in the future, maybe something that's referred to as fully funded. So you might get an advisor's time, you might get workshop masterclasses. Very seldom now, sometimes occasionally what you might have a local authority. So for example, South Ribble or Chorley might have some funds available, but just for people in either Chorley postcode or South Ribble postcode, or even a certain area of South Ribble. And it might be just for businesses to help them with the shop front because it's linked to retail. And we only might get anything between 250, 500 quid. Now, my mate who's in Blackburn might hear I've got a grant and then suddenly starts going over to Blackburn with Darwin and going, where's all these grants? My mate in Preston's got a grant for his shop front. That is something that South Ribble and Chorley have done just for themselves and only for the time period that if they invested 20 grand for that pot of money, it's just for that time until that runs out, and it might only be for a maximum of 500 quid. My shop fittings or my shop front might cost me 3 grand. You know, to do them up and what have you, but I'm getting 200, 500 towards it. And some stipulations might be you have to be a new start business. So I'm not saying that specifically for Chorley or South Ribble, but where grants apply, I would say don't be, it's kind of, some people have a mentality that I'm going to start a business up and my Uncle Charlie wants to, and we're just going to go and get a grant. And soon Denver's just going to pop out 5 grand and we're going to use that. It's not that simple, unfortunately, but don't let that put you off looking at creative ways of raising finance. You know, you've got crowdfunding where if I'm a film company and I'm saying, look, we've got independent film, if you, for 100 quid, this is what you can get. And all the other end, for the £1,000, you'll get to meet the actors. You'll get a VIP for 4 people for the screening. There'll be drinks and food. You might get your name in the credits. I don't know how, but it depends what you're doing. I don't know. You might be cast as an extra. So you've got one end, right at the other end to crowdfund stuff. There's friends and family. Again, you'd have to have a decent conversation with friends and family about what they're getting into and when is it. Certain friends and family might say, right, Letty, if you want £10,000 to open your, I don't know, IT support business, fine, there's 10 grand, give it me back in 2 years' time. That's one family and friends. Another family and friend might say, right, okay, my 10 grand I'm going to put in, when are you going to give it back? I'll give it back in 2 years. Say, okay, however, what am I getting for my 10 grand? And you're like, what do you mean? Well, I'm investing in you, aren't I, for 2 years. So I don't just want my 10 grand back. I want, I don't know, 5% of your business. I want so much of the profit. I want, I don't know, a year's supply of free IT support or something. So you might get different people might want different things. And it's, especially when it comes to friends and family, it can be, on the beginning, it's, you know, it's all fine. And, you know, what we don't want is to put ourselves in a situation or our friends and family in a situation where somebody said, hey, let's see if you know what I mean, you know, that money, well, it's kind of 3 years now. I didn't really want to ask because you're my nephew or whatever. And I, because of embarrassment, because the business hasn't been doing as well as whatever, and I've been trying to keep it afloat, haven't been able to go to my granddad or whatever and go, I'm really sorry, but I'm a year behind, aren't I? So treat it with common sense, you know, speak to some of the advisors of, you know, experience they've had supporting businesses that have had, you know, loans or short-term loans or support in whatever kind. And then there's obviously self-financing, which is you from your savings, putting it out there yourself, essentially. Not much to go. Any questions after this slide on the financial planning bit? Anybody?
No, nothing to,
No?
nothing,
Okay.
Latif, no.
All right, cool. We're going to look very quickly at a cash flow forecast. What that does, remember the operative word, it's a forecast. So what this is, it could be a standalone system like Xero, Sage, or it could be on a spreadsheet, or some of the things are designed on a spreadsheet. It's a way of you understanding money that's coming in, whether that's through a grant, a loan, what else is there? Yeah, grant, a loan, financial injection from somewhere, sales that are coming in, and then you've got money that is going out expenditure wise. So based on your personal survival budget, anything you want to pay yourself, right? You might be in a position where you've got somebody else who's earning money, or you might have some savings, and you might go, look, I'm going to set this IT consultancy business up. If I don't pay myself out of the business for the first 12 months, I've got enough to live on. But just bear in mind, whatever you needed, even though you're not taking out, you could be putting that in as an expenditure, saying, I should have paid myself 400 quid. I should have paid myself 400 quid. All right. So that's that one. You can play around. So if I'm guesstimating that, so what kind of business could I have? If I'm a marketing agency and I'm saying, right, just before Christmas, we hammered the internet on our clients, telling them to think about rebranding and marketing plans for 2026. So I've got quite a few bookings in for the first 2 weeks or the first 3 weeks of Jan. I could put in that I'm going to get so many clients in Feb, and each client, we're not going to do one-offs. We really need a commitment to work with them for a minimum of 6 months or 12 months where they're paying a retainer. Now, this is where I've got to really look at who these people are and saying, realistically, how can I convince person A, B, and C? So rather than me say for the month of Feb, I'm going to get 10 clients over the line, I might just go, I think 5 is my target. Anything else, I'm still going to work hard and get them over. That helps me with all the rest of the planning. So this is taken from the website on the resource side of Growth Lancashire. And we've got it on different months across the year. There's 2 parts to this. I just couldn't stick it on one screen. That's the lower half. But what you've got here is things that are coming in month by month. Now, it might be that somebody's going to pay me in October for whatever reason. So I already put that in. Receipts, sales could be things that if I've got a contract and we're starting in June and your retainer is £400 a month for the next 12 months or 6 months, that's going in there. Across here, purchases, wages, rent, insurance, marketing, VAT, you can change these based on the way your business operates. All right. Further down, you've got repairs. We've got drawings, which is as a sole trader money you're taking out. Legal, whether you pay one-off, like I'm paying my solicitor once a year in November, paying an accountant £50 a month or once a year. Capital expenditure, things that, what's the word now? It might be things that are not fixed, sorry, that are fixed in stone for capital expenditure. So it might be a new building that you're going to start renting out. If you do have any loan repayments and what they are and how often they are, what you're paying to the bank. So for example, when I told you about business bank accounts, you've got your standard, and then the business bank might say, well, for an extra £25 a month, you get access to all this software and you get access, sorry, what's the word? You get access to a business advisor. The business advisor are not going to be people like Jill, Sue, Purvis and Debbie. I don't think generally you can go and say, right, can I have an appointment with you? I can discuss my marketing plan. I think they might have a little look at it, but what the business advisor they're looking at is when you're kind of looking for overdrafts and loans. I think that's what they're generally looking at. I might be wrong, the landscape's changed. So again, you could still ask them, if I was to pay you this extra £50 a month, 20, they might say, there's a hub we've got in three places in the Northwest where you can walk in as a member of RBS or NatWest. You can have a hot desk, there's courses you can go on, there's a portal which you can download, this, that and the other. So this is something I would recommend that you download, and based on certain figures you've already got, start populating this. And what happens if you enter a figure here, it changes all of this. And remember the operative word, it's a forecast. Now what you can do, once you've got a draft forecast, you can let one of the advisors look at it. When you go and type in, as I said earlier on, to the link for the resource section for Growth Lancashire, you've got things like this. You've got a business plan workbook, you've got cash flow, different types. Then you've got this is a little bit more, it's still good to do, but if you've already started off doing a business model canvas, it's early days, maybe you're not set up. I'll maybe leave the orbit and orbit one. You can still have a go at it, maybe have a go at it with your advisor if you wanted to, but I would say if you've just got going, do the business model canvas, business plan, which you can interchange some of the text, and then you could maybe 3 months down the line and think, right, I've got enough intel for that. Let me now have a go at the orbit. But it is completely up to you when you do it. We've got a business plan in terms of cash flow forecast, business financials, and just if you can make out the bottom, business model canvas. So when you click on any of these, it opens you up. You can download it. And you can save it in a folder, which is business resources, folder for finance, a business one for planning, a one for sales, one for maybe marketing. And as you start coming across information, being sent information, start putting things in different folders so you know where to find it. The other one is, why don't you have, I think we've covered this, to be honest with you, so I'm going to move on. Your break even, your profit margins, your prices. Very quickly, I'm not going to go through all of these, but when it comes to marketing, what activities are you going to do online and what activities are you going to do face-to-face? Some face-to-face activities might be free. Some face-to-face might be a one-off, £10, £15, once a month, once every fortnight, once a quarter. And then maybe some things, whether they're linked to your industry, or they may be more for small businesses in Padiham or Burnley or Lancashire. And then Growth Lancashire will have events they're putting on, which indirectly can work as a bit of a networking event. And there may be other things they might be doing that they'll let you know about. That is a much more structured networking event. But either way, how you get your message out there, either at no cost, low cost, or, if you're ready for it, you approach a marketing agency. Each of the advisors have their own network of people that specialize in various things. So if you're based in East Lancs, Central Lancs, Ribble, South Ribble, Chorley, West Lancs, whoever covers those areas, you could maybe ask them, do you know an accountant in this area or that area? Okay. And they may give you a few to look at. So that's that. What skills and experience have already got? Remember, before you set up your business, you might have worked at one place for many years or several places. All that hasn't been lost. There's a lot of skills and a lot of experience you can take into your new venture, your existing venture. So, for example, communication, which would fit into online communication, verbal communication, that will fit into customer service, definitely sales, negotiation and influence, project management. You've got financial management. So you might have looked at certain finances. I mean, if anybody runs a household, you're already halfway there, if not all of the way there. So there's a lot of things you can transfer across. Some of it might be just a little bit of an adjustment for your mindset. Market research, we've talked about earlier on. So have a list of actions you can take. A lot of these things I'm talking about, why don't you set yourself a plan of how many hours you've got in the week? If you don't want to do Saturday, Sunday, if you're occupied, how many hours have you got realistically Monday to Friday? And slot it in your diary like it's a proper appointment. So you might do allocation wise, you might go, I've got Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay, what time Monday, what time Wednesday, what time Friday? What can you do to plan that you're going to be at your computer or out and about doing those activities? And how can you be held accountable to yourself and maybe one of the buddies from this program or one of the advisors? So you're always moving forward. Target markets I've talked about, understanding that and getting to the bottom of that, and then having a basic marketing plan, even if it's a couple of sides of A4 of This is the target market. This is how I'm going to communicate with them. This is the campaign between January and April this year. This is how I'm going to monitor and evaluate what's gone on, what's worked, what's not, what we can refine, and so on and so forth. Do you need anything? Right, if you've got a laptop at home, fine, but do you need any equipment? Do you need to borrow a room from somebody? Do you need to use a co-working space? Do you need any machinery? All of those things, we talked about business insurance, fixed costs and variable costs. Fixed costs is you're paying me as your accountant, £100 a month for the next 12 months. There's no change. Variable costs could be things where your heating, lighting, your mobile phone bill might go up and down. Your printing, your marketing, which might not be on a retainer. So 1 minute you're saying to me you want some banner stands and what else? Some leaflets and brochures. The last time I charged you for some of those, it came to 100 quid. Now it's double the price. Yeah, literally 4 months down the line example. You might think, how come it's just gone full 100% increase? I might go, well, the materials have gone up, shipping's gone up, whatever. Now, if I was good at my job as the printing company, I would have contacted you beforehand and said, just to let you know, Latif, things are going up from January. If you've got any needs for marketing and branding, why don't you get it in now, give a deposit of half the amount and I'll save you this much. But I might be really busy as a small business owner. Where do you need to start? Small steps, I would say. Look at what you've got and look at what the next logical step would be. Don't feel you need to have everything in one go. It'll overwhelm you, even like I said, when you're doing your research. Sales wise, what have you got in the diary plan for potential sales for the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months and 12 months? Realistic leads, these are. Suppliers, who are they going to be? This goes back to your business model canvas. A lot of it's on there, but again, business insurances, whether that's for the vehicle, class 1 business insurance, class 2, whether it's public liability indemnity, what is making you stand out? What is your unique selling point or unique proposition? It could be customer service. I wouldn't really compete on price unless you know you can really undercut everybody, because sooner or later somebody will undercut you, and that's all it's going to be, a game of undercutting everybody. What happened to all the value in what we do? Payment terms, we talked about that. And towards the end, who else is doing what you're doing? Who else is doing what you're doing? And if you can just take some of those, look online, LinkedIn, websites, anything else, and what makes them, be okay to admit it, what makes them better than you? If you were to make a call or you got somebody to make a call, how quickly do they answer it? How quickly do they deal with inquiries? Is the website clear? How do they market? Pricing points, if you can get hold of them. And what you can have is a matrix.
I'm still working 5 till 7 on a training course. I'll call you back.
Okay. What is it you can add to the what's the word now? What could you add to the mix? So Pervez is charging, say, £200 a month for business consultancy, example, for a certain type of business. And then somebody comes along and go, well, I do the same, but I charge 100 quid. What impression does that give? Why is he charging 200 quid? And what's wrong with this guy who's charging 100 quid? Am I doing a distilled version? Pervez might, for the 2025 period, charge £200 a month per client and only a limited amount of support, like as in, at the end of November, he sends a message, email, phone call to every single person he's got on his books and says, just to let you know, with 2026 approaching, I've got the same services. They're going to be better, but I'm trying to secure more people for 6 months or 12 months contracts. These people have already worked with him. However, due to the cost of this, that, and the other, and my time, and all the things he's picked up for 24, 25, pricing will be going up by so many percent. So now you'll be charged 250, 275. Them kind of things might not come from an email. It'll be ringing people around. I do a Latif. If I love him, I love him. So an extra 75 quid isn't going to make a huge amount of difference to my business, knowing I'm guaranteed support. He knows my business, he understands it, and I'm getting value for money. Now, when I started with him, I might have started off with him 3 years ago at 175 because he did me a favour, possibly. I wasn't getting 2 sessions a month, once a month. As my business has grown and he's helped me to grow my business, he knows I can afford 250. And now we're going 275 or even 375. Some of the risk would that be he might lose 1 or 2 clients. He might lose them. However, he might gain more clients from the higher end, which allows him to charge more, do less work, so to speak. All right. That is everything. So sometimes I speak a bit fast. I hope I haven't jumped around too much. Are there any questions? And also, again, the slides will come to you, but this is the link for